Hello and welcome to the Dialogue with the Expert series webinar organized by Banison Media and Jordbrukare. We all are very excited to have distinguished guests and a full house of attendees. Our attendees can share a question via the question and answer tool in your panel, and please use the chat feature to say hello to the others. Please feel free to drop any question at any point of time. The COVID-19 global pandemic has disrupted business and supply chain throughout the world. Entire regions, countries, and cities have been locked down, causing wide-scale closure of the restaurants, businesses, and events. Even in areas or not officially locked down, governments have asked consumers to socially distance themselves and to stay at home. The ensuing panic has often resulted in a food hoarding mentality among the consumers. The mass shutdown of food services in countries around the world has resulted in a backdrop or backup of milk products. During the worst of the pandemic, grocery stores are sold out of the milk and other dairy products, but retail sales have not been large enough to offset the steep loss in food services. Over the last decade, increasing sales at food service have been driven both by the growth in dairy product consumption as consumers continue to spend an increasing share of their food budget at restaurants. Due to this, India might stare at a glut of milk. To understand this and to know more how India is coping with the COVID-19 situation, we have distinguished guests on an expert panel who would comment on how India is coping with the situation, what kind of measures are being taken to ensure the continuity of the business. Now, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you to the panel. We have Mr. Sanjay Singhal from ITC. We have Mr. Rahul Kumar from Lactalis India. We have Mr. Manmeet Aneja from Nestle India. We have Shiva Mudgil from Rabobank and Mr. Dr. Tanveer Alam from Camin India. Now, I would like to give you a glimpse of global dairy situation. Okay, so before we start, I would like to give you a quick glimpse how the other parts of the world are seeing or are being impacted by the coronavirus situation. Due to this pandemic, Europe and United States are grappling with the surplus. Talking about the EU, the production is very strong. There is a lower demand because of the shutting down of the restaurants and the other industries. And then exports are hit due to disruption in the supply chain. Talking about the US, it is also having the similar situation. And they have already launched a program called Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, which is a $19 billion program to assist the farmers and also to assist the food supply companies, out of which 16 billion would be used for direct support of the farmers and $3 billion would be used by the USDA for food purchases, out of which it is expected that USDA would be purchasing around 100 million worth of products every week and would be donating it. Now, talking about the Oceania, I think New Zealand and Australia had a very good, or like they had a sweet escape from the situation because now they are entering into the lean phase. But the situation has definitely impacted the GDP index and it has been falling ever since. Now talking about the exports, their exports are also hit or disrupted because one of the main important importer for them was China, and this is where the demand has been lower. Now coming to the next session or next part of this webinar, because I don't want to be hindering the interaction between the audience and our experts, I would open up with a quick question or only one question with all our experts. What is the current scenario? What is the current situation that they see in India? And what actions have they taken to ensure the continuity of the business? So I would like to start with Mr. Kumar. Mr. Kumar, would be good to know from you what is the current scenario that you see as of now, and what actions have you taken or your organization has taken to ensure the business continuity? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for organizing this webinar. To coming to answer your question, I think India has done reasonably well in handling the crisis as far as dairy industry is concerned. As you can see that all other parts of the world, there is a big setback and disruption. But in India, I think still we have not heard anything that farmers are in distress or they are throwing milk in the field. And I would I would appreciate the entire dairy sector, whether it's a cooperative or private, that they have been able to at least procure the milk from the farmers. I will come to the demand side separately, but as far as procurement and production is concerned, there is reasonably well managed as on date. I cannot see if the situation becomes more serious or it goes other way around. But during the month of April, people have handled the milk. Farmers have been able to procure pour the milk, and dairies have been able to run the plants, as well as even demand side also they have done reasonably good in spite of lot of red zones and disruption in the supply and all this thing. So coming to the what actions we have taken, I think everybody will share that. See, we were little bit we were preparing in advance, because as a group Lactalis, this corona was in advance, a bit advanced stage by at least 2 weeks in other parts of the Europe. So we were getting these inputs that we have to prepare India also to when the India is under that trap, and perhaps we had about 2 weeks to prepare ourselves, basically to make the people aware, to get the some support which was needed in terms of protection, in terms of awareness, in terms of some kind of changing the way we were working in terms of hygiene and other safety aspects. So when we were having lockdown after 24th of March, we took 4 points strategy to run the business. One was that we will keep procuring the milk. We have to procure the milk, and for that it was good preparation was to be done in terms of making the farmers aware about their social distancing, the hygiene aspect, because there was a lot of problem in terms of at the ground level, at the farmers level, where the people were not allowed to come out from the village, so to pour the milk. So this was done. And second was that we will keep our plants running. For that we need to have a good preparation in terms of making people aware about the safety, the protection, the checking of their temperature, the health conditions. So all these things were done in advance, as well as the kind of production planning and all, because we knew that this our demand of milk and the fresh category is decreasing. So we have, if we are able to collect all the milk, it has to be converted into commodities. So we were preparing ourselves to run our powder plant and butter plant and ghee plant to the extent so that we don't have a problem of handling the milk. So these were the things which was, I would say, a little bit advanced preparation, because we were knowing that globally what is happening, and group was having this kind of preparation in the other part of the world like Italy and France and UK. So we were having bit advanced preparation. As far as supply things were concerned, it was very specific to the city to city and and zone to zone. So there we really had a problem in terms of distribution of milk, as well as initial days. After that things were stabilized. Government authorities were supportive because it was coming under essential commodity, so at least we were allowed to move our goods. But still I think it's not settled, and we have big issues in terms of distribution of milk. So we are working with the government authorities and with some alternative channels to set that thing in right perspective.
Okay, thanks a lot, sir. Now coming to Mr. Aneja, like, sir, would be good to know what is your perspective on the current situation and how has Nestle handled the situation as of now?
Hey, thanks, Prashant, and good afternoon, everyone. Prashant, in the interim, I've just got a message from Mr. Sodhi. Can somebody send him a link again to the seminar?
So I would quickly send him the link, sir.
Yes, please do that.
I've sent him.
Okay,
Great. Thanks a lot. So from our perspective, just like Lactalis, these stories seem quite similar. We also had learnings from other markets on COVID, specifically from China, which is Nestle's second largest market. So we were able to pick up those learnings on the safety practices in terms of how to run operations internally before it came to India, and implement them in the field in terms of zoning, sanitization, distance maintaining, markers, etc. And it helped us keep our operations afloat. So the first reaction was we will produce, because we were very clear that we're in the business of food. and we are also connected very strongly with farmers through the direct procurement. So we need to protect both these interests very, very clearly in the long term. So in order to secure our production, essentially for infant formula and dairy products, the first concern was how will we collect our milk? So the issue was to first secure our supplies. Second was to ensure our supplies by making sure that government permissions and the local administration was fully supportive of our efforts to carry on with our own milk collection. So that teams could be on the field, the tankers would operate, and I must admit, the government of India and specifically the Dairy Ministry have given us and the entire dairy industry tremendous support in a very, very proactive manner, getting us all kinds of permissions if they were stuck, even getting our ancillary suppliers to start if they were not getting permission, so that the value chain for the farmer and the consumer of dairy products is protected. Thereafter, it was about training the team and how to work safely, minimizing their exposure in the field, putting up processes where we could have compliant milk collected without exposing our teams to unnecessary risks, making sure that our farmer connects are in place and the quality of the product and the milk that we maintain are ensured. So this was how we saw it from an initial perspective. We were also on a growth path irrespective of COVID because of price pressures on instant milk powder last year. The own milk collection and farmer connect was already on a growth trajectory. So therefore, we were able to support these intakes and we were able to run both our dairy plants in Nova and Samalkha at 100% of capacity without losing a single shift or a single drop of milk that the farmer wants to take so far. From a demand side, clearly there have been some short-term good impacts and there are going to be some long-term impacts. On the short term, we've all experienced, all of us have experienced, that the sale of UST milk has surged. And so has the sale of everyday dairy right now. So I was reading an article by Mr. Sodhi, even in the state of Gujarat, they have experienced the increase of sale of milk powder, which is a more stable product, going up. This has never happened historically, and Gujarat has been supplying milk to the whole of the country. So there are short-term spikes because people are stocking, buying more, especially in areas where milk availability is restricted and the fear to go out is more. So certain consumptions have gone up. On a long-term trend, of course, branded products, also stable products like paneer, etc., should go up. At the same time, the impact of the demand that is generated by the, let's say, the food services side, the restaurant business, the marriage seasons, and the sweet shops that has gone out is going to be detrimental to find constructive outlet for milks, where we have to find more creative solutions. India had a solution in place, which should have been that the whole industry earlier was trying that we should produce the milk powder or import it. And thank God we didn't import as a country because we didn't know what to do with it now. And the opportunity for us is to convert all that excess milk into using skim milk powder for ourselves when actually it's needed. However, as you all know, the other side of this is that we don't know what to do with it. So there are solutions that we need to work out. At the same time, I think we have to work with two primary interests. First is make sure that the farmers' milk outlet and value chain for them is preserved and ensure to the best of everyone's ability. It's easier said than done. For branded companies and cooperatives, it's possible to do. But for companies which used to make skim milk powder or sell only pouch milk, this excess milk can create problems. So yes, we have to think about what we can do.
Okay, so thanks a lot, sir, for the quick information from the Nestle side. Now, I would like to come to Sanjay sir. Sanjay sir, would be good to know how has ITC handled the situation. Also, would be good to know because when talking about Bihar was also the milk production was slightly disrupted by the floods that were there. Now there is menace of corona. Would be good to know how you see the situation and how are you handling the situation.
Sure. So good afternoon to everyone. And I second the point that Mr. Rahul made that about the spirit of Indian dairy, because amongst all the panelists, I come from a personal care and packaged food perspective in my experience. But I have seen over the last few years that we have been in dairy that from a procurement side, we really think of the farmer, That is, I think, the strength of the dairy people who work in dairy business and our participants also. And even from the consumer, there is a feeling amongst distributors and employees of every dairy company that we are giving essential nutrition to the consumer. I think that is a spirit which I have seen in the last few years in dairy industry, being a newcomer to the industry. And I really applaud this feeling amongst the wider dairy industry colleagues in the industry. Now, coming to ITC, obviously we were not, we didn't have the benefit, unlike Lactalis or Nestle, of having a global experience. So, I mean, while we knew this, we had heard about these things, I think it hit us a lot of a shock. So suddenly we saw for 2-3 days, our demand went up. We have a small business, as you know, for pouch milk, etc., for the fresh dairy products. And then suddenly after 2-3 days, the demand collapsed by 20-30 because of sweet shops not being there or because of the Horeca channel not being present. So that was one swing which happened. And suddenly we were also inundated with a lot of milk, which comes to your question on Bihar, because of the late floods in September last year, there was a huge shortage of milk in the beginning of the flush season, which all the dairy companies faced. However, suddenly there was a late calving, I think, which happened in Bihar, and the milk procurement went up. Milk supply went up for two reasons. One is that the loose milk sellers did not have an outlet in Patna and even Calcutta, and also the sweet shops were closed. So, in fact, we were suddenly faced with a situation that our milk procurement went up by 40-50% in Bihar, and similarly in Calcutta, in Bengal, and our outlet was not there. But I think I'm seconding the point that the other two gentlemen were making. I think that a lot of actions were taken in terms of ensuring safety at the milk procurement, physical distancing, in terms of hygiene measures, giving insurance to our manufacturing plant people, etc., etc. Now things have stabilized, though we still feel that the demand is less by around 15-20% because the tea channel has completely stopped right now in all our locations. All our 4 plants are running fine because dairy comes under ESMA. But however, there are some local level execution issues that come up here and there. But overall, I think that again I would say that you have many participants from the dairy industry. I mean, if I look at other industries, I think this industry, thanks to the way the people in the industry think about the farmer and the consumer, this industry has relatively, done well in the current circumstances. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, sir. Now I would like to come to Shiva. Shiva, would be great to get an holistic perspective on the Indian dairy sector, and like what does Rabobank sees as of now, because I have seen that you have lowered your global dairy forecast as well with the milk prices, and you have brought it to one of the lowest in the series as of now. So would we good to know what do you see, and what challenges do you see in the coming days for the Indian dairy sector, because somehow we are aligned with the global milk prices.
Yes. So first of all, good afternoon and very warm welcome to all of you. And thanks to Prashant and the team for organizing this event, the webinar. And I appreciate the presence of my industry colleagues in the panel and audience. Coming to your question, Prashant, yes, globally it's impacting all around. So yes, to some extent you are right. As in we haven't yet published, we are in the process of publishing our global forecast, but it's lower all throughout the globally key regions. And that will be coming up in coming weeks itself. Coming back to India, so it just shows how the situation changes rapidly, how dynamic or fluid it is. So early this year, start of this year, we were discussing about industry, discussing with government on whether to import skim milk powder, how to import. Prices of raw milk and skim milk powder were on the higher side. And look at the situation now, clearly it has changed. And so this is kind of a dynamic that we are looking at. However, having said that, and like we track all the food and agri sectors globally in India, and if I talk about India, and I think the panel members alluded to that fact that milk industry or dairy industry is one of the industry in India which has seen least impact compared to many other Indian food and agri industry. And like Mr. Singhal talked about it being in asthma, so essential commodity, yes. So that's how the liquid milk is clearly that way in terms of supply chain hasn't seen much of disruption. It's still being delivered to my household. I can see daily, and I can see in many other cities and locations, either delivered at household or coming near to your neighborhood stores. So that's how there has been clear supply chain continuity for or integrity for liquid milk, as far as the liquid milk in the overall portfolio is concerned. Yes, there has been some impact if we talk about tea stalls outside or even food services being closed. So that's the impact the liquid milk segment has seen. And if we talk about retail, yes, due to supply chain restrictions, whether we talk about logistics issues or labor shortage, so that has led to maybe supply chain disruption of some dairy products, but that's to relate to overall retail supply chain, not only with dairy products. Food service is another chapter that is a story, because if you look at some of the products like cheese, yes, there has been a strong impact on that kind of category, because the food service commands a significant share of cheese sales in India. And another segment, which is ice cream, being on frozen side, a premium segment. And when we are in this situation, it's more about essential commodities that we are consuming. So ice cream has been one of the impacted categories so far, what we have seen in India so far. Now, if you look at how it's impacting, what I mentioned started early this year. So prices of raw milk, and if I look at Maharashtra at an annual average price rate, so more than 30 rupees it used to command at farm level. Now it has gone to around 20, 22 rupees a liter. So the government actually is also providing support through their government entities to give around 25 rupees a liter. And I believe some of the companies which are into still into value add side, so they are also procuring at a higher rate, but average price should be around 22 rupees. So that's a reduction of around 25% to 30% in Maharashtra market. And if you look at skim milk powder, again, the prices have been in the range of 320 rupees to 330 rupees again start of this year. And now it's coming around 220 rupees and even going down further. So clearly, this is again a reflection of how the market is right now into a state of flux. So just in summarize, dairy industry in India, as I mentioned, is one of the least impacted compared to many other Indian food and agri sectors. Yes, there has been certain impact on some categories within dairy portfolio, and we have seen more of informal market share being gained by the organized market like cooperatives and private players. So that's again going to happen in future. However, farmers are still fighting hard to get the right value for the milk. I'm not saying for space, some companies are still doing it, but in general, overall at industry level, I think they are still impacted stakeholder in the value chain. Yeah, Prashant.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shiva. I think this was really good to understand on a holistic level. Now, I would like to understand how consumer behavior is changing in the current times. And for this, I would like to go to Dr. Alam. And would be great that Dr. Alam, if you share how consumer behavior is changing in the current times, and how do you see it in the coming days? Dr. Alam?
Mute. Yeah, so thanks, Prashant. And it's a pleasure, in fact, first to be with this esteemed panelists. And more pleasure if I look at the attendees, the kind of attendees who are watching this webinar. I really appreciate them taking time. I hope everybody's having safe and healthy time. Coming to your question directly, I would like to directly come to sharing of my PPT, which will help me convey my message a little more elucidating manner. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'd like to put it from this question, I'd like to see it from the lens of segmented market rather than seeing it, overall. I'd like to segment the market and let's look at it how the milk production pyramid in India looks like. We know somewhere around 135 million milking animals are there in India, producing close to say 186 or 190 million metric ton milk in a year. 70% of that comes from bottom, 20% from semi-organized and those kind of dairy farmers, and 10% comes from the organized one. Now, this is the milk production pyramid. Now, if you look at it, how the market is there from the point of view of consumption. Very interesting to note that 46% is consumed locally at the place of production. 34% goes to the unorganized sector, which is the cycle bearing milk collectors and sellers. Around 20% is coming to the organized sector. Now, there was a mention of HoReCa segment, hotel, restaurant, and catering segment, which actually sucks a huge quantity of milk in India as far as the consumption is concerned. Where from they suck, it largely is from here, and of course, partly from here also. But I'd like to add here, in fact, along with HoReCa, two more later. HoReCas, I'd like to call it, and I'll call it sweet shop and tea sellers, roadside tea sellers, as the major consumer of milk in India. Just to give you a perspective, there are approximately 700,000 villages in India, and even if we take somewhere close to 10 tea shops in each village and consuming around 10 liters of milk a day, it means around 26 million liter of milk, 26 million ton liter of milk is consumed by the tea segment itself. Now add it up with a sweet shop, that will be another maybe 20-25 million. So if you look at it, the consumption pattern, it's hugely dependent in India on the HoReCa, and I'll call it HoReCas. That is one thing which has got largely disrupted. Now, if I look at it from the point of view of consumer behavior, I'd like to in a very short way, because the time is less, I'd like to stick to that given time. I will put it in the form of a few signposts, which is coming as a consumer behavior. I can see many of the attendees are having the brand with them. They are into commercial operation and they are into branded one, or would be in the branded segment. So perhaps this could be of interest to them. One of the change which we are seeing is a habit change on hygiene. It's a big disruption. How many times we are washing our hand, how much conscious we have become. A step outside a home, we are searching our mask. We have never done this earlier. This will continue even after COVID is over, even after 3rd May, or even if it gets extended or so, whatever, it will continue. It's a huge impact on the consumer mindset. How aligned we are going to be with our brand on hygiene part, that's going to be important. That's important to be kept in mind. Second is consumption at home. I got to know yesterday itself that some IT companies are contemplating that 75% of the employees are going to be working from home in coming time, even when it opens. So is going to be the case with many other organizations. This will be impacting the consumption pattern. I will show it with some data point here. One data point of Euromonitor, which is showing here, this is last month's data point, that there are 2 areas which is going to be seeing the largest lift in 2020 sales: packaged food and fresh food. And in this, they have counted milk also. Packaged food also counts milk and milk product. Whereas look at it, other places, obviously the drop was expected, but look at how much of drop, 18% drop, luxury, personal accessories and all that. But look at it where they are seeing positive sign, 8+, almost 10% increase is there expected in the sale of food and fresh product sale. Another one data point. This is from Kantar World Page usage pattern. This data point says that out of the eating habit at home, what is getting the maximum attention is a milk. Number of times people are taking tea or coffee. Number of times they are eating milk or homemade milk or milk product. It is directly having an impact on the consumption of milk. That's a good sign. Now, next one, if I look at it, is the consumer behavior is signpost is online on home delivery. Very interestingly, even though we are seeing that in past, whether it was the 5 billion sale of Flipkart or Amazon, we have demonstrated that these things doesn't get restricted to only towns or tier 1 or tier 2 cities. The pattern of purchase of online is going or percolating down to the villages or taluk area. That is going to be all the more stronger. So as a brand owner, as the product, as a milk product brand owner, how aligned we are going to be on online and home delivery, coupled up with the hygiene part. That's going to be a very interesting part when you let the customer receive your product, how he is perceiving it, whether he's perceiving it is in a hygienic manner or unhygienic manner, that will play a very important role. One data point, in fact, of BCG COVID, which is a report of end of March, which was published in first week of this month, says that in India, we are going to be seeing, they have seen almost 45% plus number of people responding that they're going to be increasing their purchase through online for food delivery. It's a good sign actually for us to capture. Again, I will say, how aligned are we in terms of making use of this as an opportunity. The another area which I will say is the health and wellness food. Very big, signpost and interesting signpost. It's a functional food element of milk and milk product which needs to be highlighted now, not just as a source of protein. We need to link it with the functional aspect. And the more we are going to be doing it, the faster we are going to be doing it, the more we are going to be getting connected. Last one, behavior pattern. I'm like to little bit deliberate on this, is the brand connect expectation. This is not usual time. This is very unusual time. First time in the life of all of us, you would have seen this kind of time. It has shaken our thought process, purchase behavior, selection criteria. So how it is going to be impacting, I will let you know about one or two slides through this. One, those of you who are having brand, and if you had been thinking to invest on celebrity for promoting of the brand, think twice. One of the recent data says, again, end of March, published in the first week of April, that consumers are not getting convinced with a brand which is being promoted by celebrity. They're looking for the people with whom they can correlate that brand better. It could be a technical person. It could be you yourself who is running the show. The confidence which you exude. I mean, that is what is going to be appreciated more by the consumer. The another point is that please be cautious about using the humor or escapism in the brand promotion. I found it very interesting point. This is a sober moment. One data point says that 23% of reduction in India is going to be expected in next 6 months as far as the earning is concerned. Not a good time. It's not a pleasurable moment. Please stop using advertisement which is having the humorous or light-hearted tone. This is not me who is saying. It is actually outcome of an Edelman Trust Barometer report which has come out recently. 57% of people said, I won't like to trust a brand which is talking too much of humor at this moment of time. Next comes, show the care with your brand. How you are expressing empathy with your brand, that's what the customer is going to be liking. Worldwide, in this survey, 83%, and India, 87% of the people expressed out positiveness towards a brand which was showing empathy and support. So these are some of the things which I would like to share in terms of quick input of mine as far as the consumer behavior is concerned. I'll take it up, in fact, later as the question comes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Alam. It was really great to get a glimpse on how consumers are thinking. And now we would like to move ahead from this into the question and answer session, because we are already getting a lot of questions, and I would still encourage our audience to share their questions through the question and answer tool that is there in the portal that they're using. I would like to come up on the first question, and I would like direct it to Mr. Aneja. The question is coming from Jitendra Parekh, and maybe not just to Mr. Aneja, but to every other panelist as well. It's like, how is the private sector doing compared to the cooperatives? Cooperatives are handling approx 55 million liters per day. Do private dairy need any support like NDDB? So, Mr. Aneja, would be great to get your feedback on this, and then we can get it from Mr. Kumar and also Mr. Singhal.
Okay, sorry, I was struggling to unmute myself. So, I can't tell you the figures for the entire private sector. I don't have those right now, but I can tell you that most private sectors with brands like ourselves, ITC, as well as Lactalis, should be taking about 12 to 15 to 18% more milk month on month versus the same period last year. That would be my assumption. In terms of seeking help from NDDB, yes, I think NDDB is already helping the private sector. They have already taken out certain guidelines in terms of advising all of us on how to operate our plants more safely in terms of, let's say, how to collect milk more safely? Do we need more milk or more support from NDB right now? I can't answer on behalf of the industry, but we're doing well at Nestle.
Okay, sir. So now coming to Mr. Kumar. Mr. Kumar, would be great to get your feedback on this.
Yeah. See, actually, what we are doing, we are collecting, in fact, 20% more milk than last year.
Okay, sir.
And because of the excess milk is there in the system, as I told that in India overall the milk is not it's not the cases where farmers are not able to pour the milk. So either they are pouring to the cooperative or private, doesn't matter, but they are pouring the milk. So everybody is getting more milk. All the organized sector, they're getting more milk. Or as far our case is concerned, we are handling 20% more milk.
Mm-hmm.
But as we can see that the demand of the Horeca segment is down by say about 30%, which was there, and we are collecting 20% more milk. So we have extra milk in our system, which is basically being converted into commodities like butter and SMP. So you can say that whatever milk we are collecting, around 40% of that milk is not sold today or tomorrow, but it is converted into commodity, which is putting a big pressure on the working capital of any dairy, whether it's a cooperative or private. And this may be a problem after certain weeks, because okay, you can handle 1 month inventory which is going under commodity, but after that 1 month, 2 months, it will become very difficult. And this should not lead to the panic kind of selling by the dairy, and which will ultimately affect the sharp reduction in the procurement prices, which would be very, very detrimental to the Indian farmers. So to uphold this inventory, the only thing what NDDB and government should do, I'm not asking any subsidy and anything, they should give a very good what you call it, support on the interest on the working capital, so that at least we can keep our working our inventory at the bare minimum cost. And because India needs that SMP, we were talking about SMP import 2 months back. Now we have SMP in our stocks, but the company should be encouraged to keep taking milk from the farmers, and on the top of that, paying in the time, because this is also very important. We have to pay farmers in time, otherwise he will not able to buy cattle feed and he will not able to sustain his business. So only support is needed from the government is there, whether they can subsidize the interest on the working capital, so that at least we have no liquidity problem. And if we have this problem, this will unnecessarily impact on the farmers price, the payment frequency to the farmers, and then it will have some negative impact on the overall business.
Okay, sir. Sanjay sir, would be great to get your feedback on this as well.
So basically, yeah, I don't think that the private sector needs subsidies right now. But I think that one thing I would like to mention, which I think is being taken up by the cooperative and private sector, is that perhaps NDDB can help to relook the GST Commission to kindly have a relook at the GST on ghee, because GST on ghee at 12% is similar to what is there on packaged meat and frozen meat and stuff like that. And it is a very basic, essential commodity from a consumer perspective. So I think that it will just help in the situation to actually get milk of the farmer and give a good quality, fat to the consumer, which is essential from the Indian diet. I think that is something which the industry is taking up, and it will help the cause of both the cooperative and the private dairies. Right?
Okay. Thanks a lot on this, Mr. Singer. Now we have a question from Thomas Bauer. He's from International Finance Cooperation. Now he's asking, since everyone seems to be collecting more milk and demand is down, how much inventory can be handled before the processors need to dump on the market? So it's exactly what Mr. Kumar has touched, but like, by when do you think like this can be of a situation we can get into?
See, India is, I have some rough figures, because I just calculate. We are making about 1,000 tons of SMP per day as an overall system. It may be plus minus 100 tons or 200 tons here and there. So we are adding about 30,000 tons of SMP, 40,000 tons of SMP per month, and this make and same same proportion in the butter. Butter is half of the SMP production, so butter would also be about 400 tons of butter or 500 tons of butter. So we need this kind of stocks, but the only issue is that how whether we can hold it. So perhaps okay, for 2-3 months it will not be an issue unless we have 70,000-80,000 tons of SMP and 30,000-40,000 tons of butter. But after that, if the situations are bad and still market is not open and we still have a lot of restriction, coronavirus cases are increasing, then certainly it will be a disaster. If nobody is able to hold that after that, then it will be straight away. People will stop buying milk from the farmers because they cannot hold the inventory and they don't have any visibility of opening of the market and opening of the demand, which I wish it should not happen. But I think we can still sustain for 2-3 months. After that, we assume that things will be returning to the normal, which is not a lot of analysts are saying that post August September things would be better. So up to if that happens, I don't think there is any problem. But after that, it will be difficult.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Kumar. Now, there's a question that I would like to bring it to Shiva. Shiva, like Mr. Somnath is asking, what is the overall financial impact on frozen and fermented dairy products due to this pandemic? So what do you think, like how are these companies going to do? Do you see that they would bleed because of the current situation and they would be unstable, or how do you see the situation here?
So Prashant, as a category, yes, you can say there has been impact, but you can't really say as a company, because this is a part of a portfolio. For any company that is into dairy, they have some share of culture and sour and yogurt products in their portfolio. So yes, to some extent that may be impacted because supply chain is clearly impacted right now because of disruptions. But a number would be difficult to put up, as in I can't really put any number to that. But yes, for sure, there has been some disruption. My point is actually more on the point that even Tanvir also mentioned about the kind of changes that we will see in future. What will happen post this situation is gone, and once we come back to normal, what kind of consumer changes we are looking at. So clearly this work from home concept is coming up, and we see more and more of that concept actually getting along with the corporates who were a bit apprehensive initially. So what we see in that scenario is more of ready to eat, ready to drink kind of dairy products being consumed by people who are at working from home. I don't expect them to really work hard in terms of just taking liquid milk and manufacturing different products at home. So that kind of market, which will have those innovative or ready to eat, ready to drink kind of dairy products, I think that will really develop in future. And also with a focus on health, hygiene, safety. So clearly this informal market that we have talked about, that has significantly impacted. But within organized segment also, I believe a company which is well diversified, both in terms of product portfolio and also in terms of geographically located in different kind of locations, I think they will get the maximum benefit out of this kind of situation once we are going back to normalcy. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it relates to how resilient you would be once we are going back to a normal situation. And I believe these companies which have this kind of characteristics, I think they will be the winners in this particular segment going forward. And possibly this will push companies to develop more of integration. As in, we do know that, yes, companies have some share of farm level engagement, but there will be much harder push for that. And accordingly, you will see much harder push on the retail side on developing consumer brands for value-added products, even for basic products also. So clearly focus would be on brands. So that's how I see the change in scenario coming up in future, how the companies would react. And possibly companies like who has strong FMCG network, that kind of DNA, the point that I mentioned about diversification, that will actually help in getting your product available in different kind of pandemic or concerning situations.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shiva. Now talking about like going back to the farm side, like Shiva, you mentioned that it's all about the resilience, and let's talk about the resilience of the farmer, because our farmers are generally small and marginal hold farmers. How do we see as of now, our panelists see as of now, impact on the farmers, how they are being impacted, and what actions our organizations have taken to ensure that they persist? Because anytime we see a volatility, we see a significant number of farmers leaving the dairy farming because it gets really it takes a hole into their pocket. So here I would come to most of the I would come to Mr. Singhal because he's representing also he's present in Bihar. Would be great to know the situation in Bihar, sir, on this.
So, okay, so I mean, what we've seen in Bihar, for example, is that obviously Bihar is one location amongst all the states where the per capita output per cow or per farmer of milk is very, very low. The productivity is very low and the farm count per farmer is very low. And hence the farmer, depends a lot on that milk which he is selling, because alternative gainful employment is very low in many parts of Bihar. So we've seen that the quantity has gone up, and I think all the dairy companies, be it Sudha or ITC, we've supported the farmer in milk procurement. I think coming back to what help is required, again, your question, I don't know if there's any way where, when there is so much surplus, there is some technical thing which can be done to actually limit the output. Because I think this is more of a technical challenge from a breeding perspective or from an animal perspective. But, that's one thing. However, I think that the farmer, obviously, he has to earn his livelihood. I think he is trying to sell wherever he can. And the industry, as Rahul said, is really supporting the farmer from that perspective. The challenge I think the farmer is getting in Bihar and across India is actually in terms of the fodder, because fodder is not being able to connect the necessary nutritional ingredients that he has to put in the fodder. That is not reaching him because of supply chain disruption. And I think there's also a disruption in certain veterinary provisions that are required. I think that is going to have an impact, which we've been reading in the last few days.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Singhal. Now, I would post a similar question to Mr. Aneja, because he's also representing a state, or at least Nestle is from the state which has one of the best farm structures in India when it comes to. Mr. Aneja, how do you see the current situation, and what actions have you taken or Nestle has taken to ensure that farmers are not getting crushed into the current situation?
Okay, so in order to not impact the farmer, we had also developed a contingency plan in which we had reached out to 5 or 6 local co-processors. We would utilize their capacities to produce skim milk powder and ghee or base powders in case we had issues in permissions or logistics to run our own plant. But the primary objective was always that we should not drop farmer milk, and that was always paramount on our management and our minds. So we maximize our own production. As a consequence, we are now even producing skim milk powder for our own later consumption in-house. Like the panelists before me, I see this situation can be sustained for 2 to 3 months more. In the current scenario, by self-sufficiency of most organizations. But in the long term, if push comes to shove, we are all aware that the European Union has been able to stock even 300,000 tons of skim milk powders as an intervention and aid to be progressively given out. I think we all have the ability to be able to do something like this as well, because the cyclicity of dairy and dairy production, farmer reaction to low prices, concerns all of us. And this will allow us some amount of skim milk powder security in the country. The challenge we have to face, unlike European Union, is do we have the technology to preserve skim milk powder for 3 years, because we are a hot country and we don't do nitrogen flushing of our powders. And the outlet for AMF, because Shiva is the expert, but I don't see, despite even at a global level or outlet for us, skim milk powder or AMF, unlike before when we had huge stocks, where the subsidy helped us sell it to other markets. I think there'll be plenty of excess now, and that's something that's going to be concerning if it goes beyond 3 months.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Aneja. Now coming to, because there was one point about the feed, I would come to Dr. Alam, and there's also a question from Mr. Kumar Gaurav, and he's asking what would be the impact on cattle feed availability going forward. So Dr. Alam, would be great to know how do you see the cattle feed availability, as well as how do you see the nutritional availability for the animals in the current times?
Okay, so interesting question. I'll put it in this way that, in India, we are producing around 11 million metric ton of cattle feed. And looking at where it is consumed, it is largely consumed into organized sector and part of that into semi-organized sector. So interestingly, in this whole scenario in which we are in, the least impacted segment is the organized and semi-organized sector, more so those dairy farmers who are having their own branded milk or milk product. So to the contrary, in fact, when I'm speaking to some of the leading large-scale dairy farmers, they're bullish. Their demand is high. They're not able to supply because they have worked on the establishment of brand in past and they're getting dividend at this point of time. They will be the consumer of the cattle feed, rather they will be more consumer of cattle feed. Just 2 days back, I was speaking to owner of one of the largest private cattle feed manufacturer. He was also echoing the same kind of thought that there is, except for the logistical challenge which he was facing sometime in earlier stage, now there is no problem. His sale is high. So to answer your question, or the people who are into cattle feed, it's all the more great time ahead. Focus upon more segmented cattle feed for dry animal, for transition animal, for high milk animal, and work upon that in a more confident way. For balance of the area, it will take some time for them to go back to the earlier state, because I cannot deny that the farmer who is there into the bottom of pyramid, who is a financially distressed person, their purchase behavior of cattle feed will definitely change. That may to some extent impact on the consumption at the bottom pyramid, but that consumption was not very high. That will get ably supported in a higher proportion by the consumption of organized and semi-organized. All in all, I foresee around 6 to 8% increase in the cattle feed production by the end of this year itself, as against 10%, 9 or 10% in last year.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Alam. Now I have a question that is again coming back to the panelists. It's like, what are the post-corona strategies to attract customers towards parlors or particular products like ice cream? So what is our post-corona strategy? So Mr. Kumar, would be great to start with you.
Yeah, of course, this ice cream was having some kind of misinformation, and people were thinking that cold will, attract a lot of flu and all this thing. Perhaps that cloud will be over in coming days and weeks, and ice cream should be on the right track after this. The things are over. I could see the two things in what I think we could anticipate. One is that the way we are channels are delivering the milk. I think a lot of emphasis is done on the e-commerce and some other alternative channels. Perhaps that would be the new trend after this crisis is over. And another thing which I think will be very, very important, that people will be looking some kind of the immunity builder components and in the food, which I think there will be a good research and development would be taking place, maybe not only in dairy industry but between dairy and pharma industry, where milk has to be used as a carrier for this the good compound and immunity builder compound, and the milk will not be same. I think there will be a lot of research and development, and there will be new products where milk is used as a carrier to to the consumer, where the immunity building and more nutrition is given through milk. Today milk is bounded by FSI rules of fat SNF, and if you do anything new, it will be coming under proprietary products. But I think after post corona, I think this would be the trend where how milk can be used as a carrier to give good nutrition to the people, including immunity builder.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kumar. I would now ask another question is like, do we see any farm structural changes coming to India due to this situation or the scenario? Do you see rise of larger farms?
Actually, that I don't think it will be changing just because of this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But I would still see that because we were working on those kind of new concepts and all. I think that one of the things which is going to affect the farm is the efficiency of the farm. Maybe we are talking about milk yield and all these things. But one of the most important criteria or category what I'm seeing in the farm is the use of silage.
Mhm.
Because we silage is not is in place in India, where we are totally dependent on the other form of the feed, and silage is very good concept which is prevalent all over world. And I've seen that in some places where the silage is being worked, like in Maharashtra, we are working in Prabhat on silage, where local level silage making is becoming very much popular. And this would certainly have will have the trend of silage making, so that people are getting good nutrition in the tough times, as well as cheaper, and I think it's more manageable. So this would happen. I don't see that there will be a lot of consolidation of the farms and all this. This will be normal what we are doing, but it has no relation with the crisis.
Okay.
Because we have millions and millions of farmers which have to be more efficient, rather than and then they will keep adding some animals. But we have our own limitation of the farm management because of the very low land holding per farmer.
Okay, Mr. Kumar. Now, because like we are already approaching the end of this session, because we have already talked about the challenges, we have also taken care of some current scenarios. Now let's talk about what we see, what opportunities we see, and as well as what do we see in the mid and the long-term future. When I say mid is 3 to 6 months, and long could be like beyond 6 months to 2 years. So starting with you, Mr. Kumar, like how do you see the current, how do you see the opportunities for the sector, and what is your mid and long-term view for the dairy in India?
No, I believe that because whatever we are discussing, we are assuming certain things on the level of crisis and how long it is crisis will be there. So I assume that that crisis will be over by September. Okay, there will be some stray cases. So as far as this, till the crisis is there, I think we'll keep improving our availability of the products in the market, which was totally disrupted because of sudden restriction by the government and the local authorities and all. So perhaps we will be having effect on the HoReCa segment, but part of that HoReCa segment would be compensated by a little bit more milk consumption in house, because still people they are at home and they are drinking and eating. So perhaps this will be able to compensate something on that. After that, if the things are opening, then HoReCa segment will slowly, step by step, it will also be opening up. So this is a little bit short term and long term. The only thing I see that there is some disruption in demand, a decrease in demand because of maybe the reduction of the purchasing power of the bottom of the pyramid people, because they have lost the job. So perhaps they will be cutting their whatever little bit milk consumption they were having. And another component is the migration of the people from the big cities. This may impact some demand, but I cannot assess right now what would be the overall demand. But I think because the situation will improve, then domestic consumption will improve because of the availability would be better. What is not the case today, because people still have a lot of red zones and all these things. Because of that, still the milk supply of milk becoming difficult. Another thing is that the product like UST and all I think will have a good sales in coming season, including paneer and all these things, because these are the things which people are using in their household now.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Kumar. Mr. Singhal, how do you see what opportunities do you see as of now and post-corona, and also what is your viewpoint on the mid and the long-term outlook?
So when I look at other staple-like categories that ITC operates in, be it atta or spices or salt, I think that dairy is rightly positioned because in a way consumers will come back to basics. So two things: consumers will come back to basic food categories like milk, like lentils, like fruits, for example, and dairy is uniquely positioned there. So I'm quite bullish because, like in my own home, I'm seeing that my daughter, she was not drinking milk, but children are seeing the same TV we are seeing the same news, and I'm sure that children themselves now don't need to be pushed as much as they were earlier. Mm-hmm. So I think some habits will continue, and I think there is a bright future for the dairy industry. The only question mark which is there is for the non-milk value-added products like ice creams, milkshakes, etc., which had a lot of social consumption, that may face some, I would say, headwinds going further. Otherwise, I think that there is a bright future. If and also, I think it will also help to reposition milk, which in the mind of the consumer, because I mean, given the functional benefits of milk, there's so many arms and legs this category stands on, and if played right by the industry, I think it can be repositioned and it can really become very, very relevant from the consumer angle. I think also from a channel perspective and the farm perspective, I think certainly consumers will want to know where their food is coming from, be it fruit or milk or whatever they are eating. So certainly I see that consumers will start asking about where is my milk coming from, where are the farm practices, what are the hygiene practices. And I think there is an opportunity here for high quality manufacturers to actually go and reassure consumers about the sourcing and the hygiene levels that they have.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Singhal. Now, Mr. Aneja, I would like to ask you the same question because well, you are one of the organizations that has one of the most or the longest standing in the Indian market. How you have seen or Nestle has seen the development of the sector? How do you see the mid and long term outlook, and what are the opportunities that you see as of now?
So I would echo the sentiments of my panelists totally. I think food and milk within food should not worry too much. But like most sectors or any sector in pre and post COVID scenario, you must always keep a close eye on how it evolves. And the sectors that we talk about as being concerned also have the opportunity to regain and reposition themselves, like Mr. Singhal said. So if the ice cream sector goes away from frozen desserts to pure ice cream based on fat made from ghee, of course, it makes the product more healthier. It drives consumption of ghee and makes the value chain of milk end-to-end reliable. The same goes for sale of ghee and stopping of adulteration of so-called vanaspati ghees that's being sold in the marketplace. So there, I think there's a pretty clear opportunity to grow some demand, build some faith and resonance around the milk in the country, which has always had a very long standing historically in all our religions and in the philosophy, and we will be able to come out of this stronger. I think we can do that. The two things we need to always take care of, as also mentioned by our panelists, is make sure the farmers are taken care of, their interests are protected, and at the same time, the quality that we give to consumers is always preserved. Because as an industry, that's our only role. Connecting the farmers, making sure that their model is sustainable while giving relevant, safe, branded, good products to the consumer. That's our role. We must keep doing that. If we do stick to the basics, everybody will be fine.
Great. Now, like we are approaching the last leg of the session, we have already overshot by 3 minutes, but I would like to approach all our experts here in the panel and like to get one key message that you would like to give to our attendees. So maybe Mr. Aneja, you can start. One key message that you want to give to the attendees.
I think we need to manage by the week and think for the next month and stay positive. Things will get fine.
Great. Now, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, I think my key message would be that we ensure that our farmers' interests are protected, and we should help them in terms of cattle feed support. In terms of one thing we have not discussed is the breeding support. The artificial insemination, which was totally disrupted in last 1.5 months, and if that is disrupted, this will have a very big impact on the coming milk cycle. The production would be delayed or it will be lower. So this we have to be very careful as a technical input to the farmers. And I think we have done very remarkably well as the Indian dairy industry is concerned. We should keep motivating our people who are in procurement, who are in logistics, who are in plant, and perhaps they have really shown their good performance, and that should be there. We should have positivity in our system, including milk agents or a retailer, so that the things are in much better. and the things are improving.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kumar. Mr. Singhal, your key message?
I think my key message is that, in the times of crisis like this, we have to all, in every business, focus on the basics. And the basics, as the other panel is saying, is that take care of the farmer and take care of the consumer. Give the consumer good quality product. Milk by itself in India has so much value in the consumer's mind that, it will be relied on by the consumer.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Singhal. Dr. Alam, one key message from you.
Yeah, I mean, most of the points already have been told. I will say that think tactically. It's not a time to think too long and too strategically. Be very observant of consumer behavior. Be experimentative. It's a time just to give an idea that milk, as I think Mr. Rahul also had said, or Sanjay had told, that milk being projected as an immunity enhancer could be a stealing concept at this stage of time. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Alam. Shiva, now I would like to come back to you and get your key message for our audience.
So I completely align with what other panel members have been saying. The only thing I would be looking at is how industry should look at, as I mentioned, immediately after this crisis is over. The problem I see, the challenge I see is that the more and more of this situation remain, more of liquid milk converted into powder, and we will have a huge stock of milk powder at our disposal. And globally also there is, Rahul also mentioned about lower prices in global market, and here also it's depressed. So if that will be the case in future, I think this will also not be good for the farmers. Ultimately, they will not be paid well. So that's, I think, the key thing that need to be focused by industry, even the government, how to look at that situation. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Shiva. I think with this, we come to the end of the this webinar, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all our panelists. Firstly, I would like to thank them because you have your trust in us, you have joined us, you have given your valuable time to for the webinar. Also, now talking to the attendees. Firstly, I would like to apologize for the people who have registered but were not able to join because of the limitation of the bandwidth that we had. But we will make sure that we come back to you with the recorded video. And then later, we would also share the summary from this presentation that we have done. So thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. And we look forward to similar good quality webinars and more interaction with the experts in the field and the leaders in the field, and trying to change the way we do dairy and trying to enhance or bring the best value to the sector. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Tanvir, Manmeet, Shiva.
Goodbye.
Sanjay. Take
See
care.
you.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Everyone. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
So,
Bye-bye.